Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me because sometimes my audio decides not to work, and sometimes Discord decides, you know what?
Hello, everyone.
We don't need anything called, the internet or anything like that. So it's always fun when Discord goes down. At least it went down, before we went live. Anyhow, hello. I'm Steven Glicker from Roll for Combat. We have, oh my god, we got Mark Seifter and Nonat. They're in the wrong boxes.
Oh no, guys, I'm Mark.
I'm Nonat.
Oh no.
For this moment, I get to be lead game designer.
Oh,
Yes, and watch my popular YouTube channel.
That's what happens when Discord goes down because I had to redo all the OBS and obviously I'm fast, but I'm not accurate.
Mark looks different.
Man, I think you guys are it's okay. We'll leave it like that because otherwise it's going to be a mess. Who cares?
Okay, we'll see if people can tell who's Mark and who is Nonat.
It's an Easter egg. It's an Easter egg. It's a trick.
There was a mind swap ritual that happened at some point when Discord went down.
Oh yeah.
So those of you who are new, we discuss a topic, and then we will answer questions, usually in the second half of the hour. Feel free to put in questions if you want it to be guaranteed to answer. Just add to a super chat, because those we get, and we'll make sure we get to them, especially if we get a lot of questions. Otherwise, we were going to talk about, suddenly people are talking about Pathfinder in the world of D&D, and a couple of weeks ago it exploded to the point that Pathfinder was in the top 1 or something, or top 5 in Twitter, and it was
trending in gaming very, very high,
which is wild.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
and each of us have a very different take on why this was, and I don't know. Why don't we let our guest go first? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know Nonat's take on it.
I mean, I know Mark's
Steven's.
and I know mine, and ours are very, very different because mine's. We'll see. We'll save it. But
okay.
But Nonat. By the way, is it Nonat or Nonat1 or Nonat1s with the plural?
Nonat is fine. That's typical. That's the typical moniker I go by because Nonat1s can just be a little bit of a mouthful.
So, and your mom just calls you No.
Yeah. No, Noni, Noni Boo. That kind
Got
of
it. Okay, Noni Boo.
Oh God. So my take on it is a mix of a lot. Pathfinder 2E's momentum has been growing and growing for the past 2 years because of Paizo's ability to just rank and pump out those books. And I know Book of the Dead is super hyped. And I think what might have helped the trending status almost in a negative way is I think it blew up right around the time Paizo said that they were delaying Book of the Dead by a month, which, all press is good press. So even though people might have been talking about their disappointment with the delay, it got people talking. Now, combining that with what I think to be the real reason Pathfinder hit trending, again, not necessarily a happy reason, but a happy conclusion. I know the CEO of Hasbro about a month ago went on record saying that NFT and crypto with the Wizards IPs was not out of the question. They didn't say they were doing something. They didn't say what was happening, but they did shut down a third-party Magic the Gathering NFT project and have said that, maybe someday they'll do something themselves. And so, the internet is very vocal about their feelings, at least certain sects on cryptos and NFTs in particular. So when the CEO came on record to say that they might do this, a lot of D&D fans were very quick to be like, okay, I need a new game. What's the closest thing to D&D? And a lot of people do look to Pathfinder. I'm not saying this is the only reason. Obviously, from there, Pathfinder got talked about because people started learning more about it, about the cool options. I had one post on Twitter that exploded because I put you can play as a plant person with a prosthetic leg and some kind of animal. I just made the most insane character concept idea you could have by level 2, and it got so much traction. So I think people were learning more about PF2, got excited, and while they were spurred on by this sort of negative take that not a lot of people agreed with, the momentum carried through because there was so much to talk about, which kept it trending for 3 or 4 days, which on the internet is years.
That is So Steven said we all have different takes, but my take is almost exactly the same as Nonat. That was the catalyst. It was a spark.
Yes.
That means that Tinder had to have already been laid, and Steven's take is almost entirely focused on Tinder and kind of on the Tinder that comes before it, and is I guess I'm sort of in between, because I think that what you said, and I mean, you're kind of also saying that it's the catalyst, that's the spark. Negative takes are what fuels the algorithms of things like Twitter and other places. So you're never going to light a fire with people just liking something. It just doesn't work.
Which is unfortunate.
And it's very sad, because like I usually try to only post stuff that's positive, and it's harder to get traction on stuff like that. But the spark of that negativity lit the Tinder that was laid already, which was just people who were looking into Pathfinder 2e because there's more and more content, and there's a lot of good things that Pathfinder 2e was doing all along that would like go under the radar. Like it would be like, you know, Pathfinder was doing things with like ancestries that were like pretty in-depth recasts, and then just it wouldn't hit social media, it wouldn't hit the news. And then like D&D would do something that was like, if Pathfinder was like at an 8 of doing something, they would do like a 3 towards that direction, be like, big news, D&D is moving towards this direction, and look, they've made it so this ancestry is no longer has to always be evil or something like that, because it's the big, you know, D&D is the titan in the room, and so it's going to get the media attention for anything in that direction. But so there was foundations, there was groundwork, but like you said, Nonat, it takes sometimes negativity to spark the algorithm, and I think that the negativity over NFTs were the spark that lit it up and that caused it to start, but it wouldn't have lasted 3 to 4 days just on that. The internet would have found something else. If there wasn't something really exciting and interesting to find and to discuss and to talk about on that topic, once it got to trending, then it would have just kind of been a flash in the pan.
Exactly. The lasting effect and how long it was trending should speak wonders. I can't tell you the amount of times I saw people saying like, how are gnomes this cool in Pathfinder, with like the bleaching and everything that nobody knew about, but tons of people learned about thanks to that. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, my take is a little different, only because I've been watching it from a different point of view. So I have been, working hard on developing the Battlezoo line and working hard on converting Pathfinder 2nd edition to 5e. So I've been talking to a lot of people and seeing like the limitations and what you can and can't do in 5e. And one thing I've been hearing is a lot of people, I'm not like knocking D&D, because 5e has its own place and its own, world and realm and way to play it. But if you are, let's just say, a Pathfinder person or someone who would enjoy Pathfinder, who wants heavier rules and more crunch and, more depth, I can imagine after you've played 5e a couple of times, especially core 5e, that you will start to see very quickly the bones, and you'll realize, it's like every time I build a warlock, they're the same. There's like not a lot of variation to how these classes are made. Now, obviously, their answer to that as well, there's 10 billion things by freelancers and third-party publishers that you can buy, which is true. And 5e is very modular and easy to add to. But for the core game, it really hasn't changed. So I know there was a lot of people who I think were expecting when Monsters in the Multiverse came out, that they were like, this is going to be, and they actually hyped this up a lot. And it was a lot of bad timing. It was a combination of, okay, we're going to do the Monsters of the Multiverse. It's going to show a preview of what 5.5 is. So a lot of people were excited. I heard a lot of people like really couldn't wait. Then you could only buy the book as part of a package and buy 2 other books almost everyone has. So it was like $130, $140 book, which is like, okay, that's bad too. It's like, okay, wait, I can't wait, but the only way I can get it is to like buy this book, but I have to get 2 other books I already have. Ugh, okay. And then everyone was all excited. It came out, and it was all lore. It was pretty much lore and like a little difference, small differences in the monster stat block. And I think these people were like, that's it? Like, that's like lore is what you're changing? You're changing how alignment works? Like, you're changing small things? Where's the crunch? Like, I see all these posts of people going on and on about how they're going to update the combat and the spell system and add to the economy and make a true working gold economy. And I'm like, none of that's there. And if you go and see the episode where Mark, myself, and Paul talk about what is the future of Dungeons and Dragons, I have a feeling you're not going to be seeing that much of a difference when 5.5 comes out. I think it's going to be pretty much the same as what you see now. I think it's going to be pretty much the same game because they ain't going to make it that much more complex, in my opinion. So I think these people were already upset and they were like, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for years. Like, where's the meat? And then the NTFs and all this other was just like, as you said, mine was like the Tinder, and then that was the match. And then they're like, okay, that's it. Like, I am done. Like, these guys sold me a bill of goods. We're not getting an amazing new edition. We're not getting a whole new game. We're just getting small upgrades. Now they're selling us NTFs. What else is there out there? Oh, what's this? Pathfinder. I've heard of Pathfinder. Wait, this thing is awesome. This has pretty much everything I've been saying that should be in 5th edition, which is what I see a lot in these Reddit posts. Like, I want all this stuff, and the people are just like, play Pathfinder. Like, seriously, that's the response. It's like, what you're looking for is in Pathfinder 2nd edition. It has like insane customization for PCs. You know, it has much more depth. It's just a much crunchier game. And I think people who might have been, you know, ignoring Pathfinder or just like thought it was just D&D with something different, they're starting to actually look at it for real, and then it just started like the ball rolling. So that's my take.
To expand on your point, after COVID and like a 2.5, 3 year almost online only experience for people, you know, tabletop RPGs are more popular than they've ever been. And a lot of people, you know, started with 5e and, you know, 2.5 years ago. And now all those people who were new and had never really played much before, they're basically veterans at this point. You know, 2.5 years, you could be on your 3rd campaign if you've been playing weekly. Depending on how long you played your campaign. And like you said, they might, even the new players back in 2020, 2019 are probably to the point where they're like, I wish I had more. You know, I've played a fighter, I've played a warlock, I've seen my friends play the other classes. I've kind of seen everything, and there's not a whole lot of room to theory craft outside of insane multi-class min-max builds. And so, yeah, they look at Pathfinder 2, which I think has honestly come out at a perfect time, especially with all the new supplements they've released for it. And yeah, everything is there that they want more of. And it's also what I really hope Pathfinder can do, and it's going to rely on the community, not the game itself, is get away from that stigma of, oh, it's just the same as D&D. Because people like to say, you know, Pathfinder is 3.5.5, but 2e is its own beast. But there are still people out there who are like, it's just D&D. It's not different. And I don't really understand how that stigma still exists, but
I mean, it's because of the evolution lines and the way that people like to think about, even like in literal evolution and animal sort of taxonomies, like, oh, well, you know, dolphins are pretty similar to dogs, I guess. It's like, are they? Well, you know, they have a common ancestor up there, and with Pathfinder, it's even closer than that. So I can see how, looking at how it progressed, you might consider that, and the fact that when you compare to some indie RPGs that are out there that are just way different, they are both like relatively rules heavy D20 based fantasy RPGs that share names of spells like Magic Missile and Fireball and things like that. So in the spectrum of everything you can do in tabletop RPGs, they are still relatively close. But there is a lot of differences that you can still find between them, even despite that fact. And it is something that I think people will often underestimate when they're thinking about the two games.
The war that I'm hoping will subside at some point is the 1E versus 2E. I know it's probably never going to go away, but the amount of flame wars, hateful comments, and posts I see about like diehard first edition fans basically insulting people for liking second edition is just sad to me. Like, you're allowed to prefer first edition, but these people are attacking this new system like it's some kind of, I don't know, horrible thing.
Yeah.
It always happens, and it always happens more one-sidedly in the direction of the people who like whatever the previous system is. It's the same reason why when you go online, this is something that I had to learn as a designer with public playtests and things like this. When you go online, you are going to find responses from the person who is not happy with whatever the status quo is. If they're happy, they're not motivated to post as often. Some people do. Some people have a thing, like I have the problem that I'm talking about here, where I'm just like, this just seems like I'm just praising them and fawning over something, so maybe I just won't do it. But creatives really want to receive that kind of feedback, and you should do it. But that's not how people work. If you don't like what's happening right now, you'll be motivated to post to get it to change. And you might do it politely, you might do it very impolitely on the internet. And it sometimes has led has led people that I'm working with to be like, these people are just going to complain no matter what we do. And it's like, no, it's different people. It's like, but we said thing X, between X and Y, we're picking X. And then we had like 50 people who were angry and one person who was happy. Then we said, okay, we're picking Y. And we had 50 people who were angry and one person who was happy. And I was like, yes, but the one person who was happy was one of the 50 people who was angry the second time. And the one person who was happy the second time was one of the 50 people who were angry the first time. They're not the same people who are just going to be mad at you no matter what. It's just that you just don't get to hear from the people who are happy. And that's just how the internet works. And so since the new edition is de facto where the publishing is, where the resources are, always the older edition is going to be the one that gets a little bit more upset. Yeah. I think another interesting thing about the factor of Pathfinder 2E's popularity is that a lot of the time I've seen earlier on, people dismissed Pathfinder 2E's play amount. I was reminded of this when Nonat was talking about everyone play on VTTs. Is like the OR report from Roll20, which is like Pathfinder 2E is like 1% of tables. Nobody really plays it that much, and it's really underestimating Foundry.
Yeah, nobody uses Roll20 for Pathfinder because it doesn't do enough.
It's underestimating Foundry, which is gobsmackingly popular. And in our own Kickstarter, we saw
don't
how gobsmackingly popular it was.
Yeah, don't say numbers, but I asked.
I won't.
Okay, I have insight, and I can tell you that as popular as you think Pathfinder 2nd Edition is in Foundry, you have no idea. I have the actual hard data, and it is stunning. That is like, oh, do you play Pathfinder? Then you play on Foundry. That is pretty much it. I actually still play on Roll20, but that is because for my podcast, I have 1 million scripts that I've written, and it's going to take me a while to move over everything to Foundry. So it's
Steven, someone has to keep up that 1% of tables.
I know. I'm a big 1% there, though.
Even though like over 10 times as much is going on in Foundry, probably.
No, but it's also, I've been working heavily with the people, and like just the back end. The 5e is just so much more advanced on Roll20 than Pathfinder is. It's just a tool set's not the same. And Foundry, because the way it's written, I mean, Roll20 is about 10 years old now, and 10 years might as well be 100 in the world of, of game design or website design. I mean, that's what I do for a living. Foundry, I've been following very closely. It's built it's very well built. It has the way the open source community is built and how it's built like Linux is built. It's it's an open source platform where people can submit ideas, and tell you it works. Trust me, it works.
Well, and the passion of the creators of Foundry is incredible. When I look at Roll20, I see very much a corporate with their own team of designers, but when I look at Foundry, I see a community creating things for each other, which is just incredible to me.
So I think this is only the tip of the iceberg, because everyone's expecting, a lot from from WotC, and they're expecting 5e to come out with 5.5 or 6, and they're expecting a sea change and a massive change to the game. They're expecting much deeper game, and this is everything I read on Reddit, and this is the game, for better or for worse, is extremely approachable. It's very easy to play. There's a lot of advantages to that, but if you're going to be playing this game over and over and over again, I have a feeling, at least for myself, it gets a little samey very quickly. And the only way you can make the game more interesting is to bring in third-party materials. Well, that's kind of it right now, because they don't really add, they don't add new classes. They don't expand their classes that much. They just don't, they come out with item books and adventures. That's pretty much all Paizo. I keep saying Paizo.
Was
WotC does.
Was Tasha's the last big update book for them?
I think so.
I know they had the bestiaries and stuff, like the fizz bands.
Yeah, but it's but they don't come out with new classes. They just don't come out with new crunch. They come out with very small amounts of crunch and then adventure paths. And their adventure paths are very, very weak compared to any Pathfinder adventure path. I've read all the books. They are outlines for the most part. They require a huge amount of work, mostly for GMs, to make these work. And some of them, don't get me wrong, some of them are very good, but most of them are more like, if you ever read, do yourself a favor, buy a first edition adventure, or just go to PDF and find a first edition adventure. You'll be stunned how little is in a first edition adventure. It's basically, here's a map, here's the monsters, here's the theme, go. That's all there is. First edition adventures are stunningly slim, because you back then were supposed to build it. It was.
And is this first edition D&D or Pathfinder?
D&D. Sorry, D&D.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. You're talking about
all the way,
way back.
20 pages long.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and they're very short, and you'd be amazed. That's it. That's this whole thing. And when you read these 5e adventures, believe it or not, I feel like I'm reading these first edition. I'm like, that's it. I'm reading. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of building blocks and scaffolding here, but it really requires me to do a lot. And then you look at the Pathfinder adventure paths, and damn, you can run those things pretty much as written. Some, as always, are a little better than others, but you can almost run them with no changes if you do.
So I'm not sure that's good or bad are the right way to describe that. You might just not be the target audience, because people running the adventures might not be the target audience. D&D is selling them. They're popular maybe for people who want to read them, or who are interested in a first edition D&D style feel to their adventures, whereas maybe the Pathfinder ones are more focused towards people who are going to run them.
Well, to expand on the topic of popularity, I sometimes hear people talk about D&D 5e mechanics. I never hear people talk about the adventures. Everybody I know who runs 5e, which again, this is personal experience, but they run homebrew adventures. Yeah, I have never once played through a pre-written 5e adventure, ever.
I've never played them. I've watched them, and I've watched a lot of YouTubes on which are the best ones. Here's the thing, though. I disagree, Mark, because if I'm going to spend $50 for a book, that's an adventure. I want it professionally written. I want this to work. I don't want to sit here and do the work. At least that's me. And, I feel like I'm spending time and money for them to put this thing out. Why am I then supposed to spend another 50 hours building out the adventure? Shouldn't this be what I'm paying for?
Look, I'm not the target audience of ones just to read either.
I know, but I think
I'm just going to say, I want to think about things from a different perspective. And also, Nonat, you said that you haven't run or heard of people running. I guess you hear a lot of people running Pathfinder APs. Very popular. But you said you hadn't run any D&D adventures, but isn't it true that until Strength of Thousands, you also didn't necessarily have? I saw a post from you that said Strength of Thousand may single-handedly change my perspective on pre-written campaigns.
Right.
So until then, you may not have had the same perspective even on the Pathfinder adventure paths.
I've been interested. Me and my friends tried to run Extinction Curse. We found it wasn't for us, and I won't kid. By the 3rd page of the first book, I changed everything. But that's what impressed me so much about Strength of Thousands. We played through like the first 15 pages or whatever in like a 4-hour session, and I didn't change a thing. I was so impressed. And yeah, not to go on a tangent, but Strength of Thousands is the gold standard for me, at least of introductions to an adventure path. And I think it's because it's so different. The issue we had with like Extinction Curse was all my players were like, we're circus performers, we're level 1 circus performers, why would we go out and fight monsters? Whereas in a magical academy, first off, you're all magical, so you know you have some kind of capability, but it's also easier to railroad, quote unquote, in a school. When a teacher says, hey, can you help me with this? It doesn't feel like railroading because that's what school is. And it works so well. The plot just kept moving. We never had like a dull moment of what do we do, because it's very good about being like, welcome to your first day. We're going to introduce you to people. Maybe you'll fight a magical tower. We'll see what happens.
That's actually another good point, by the way, because Strixhaven came out, and Strixhaven got, we'll say, mixed reviews. Okay,
Yes.
I don't want to say bad things about it because I'm very friendly with Amanda, who wrote it or led the design on it. So
I've heard good things from some people. I've heard bad things from other people, and there's a lot. I think there's a lot to like about it too.
I think there's a lot to like.
Book.
I think
it's a lore book, right?
I think it's hard to run as an adventure. I think it's very good as a book for interesting concepts. I think to run as an adventure, I think it's very hard. And then Strength of Thousands just happened to come out the exact same time,
right? And
it pretty much was no contest. Like, people are like, wait, what is the strength of that? What, you're in a magic academy and it's like, you know, this huge adventure with like, and you know, amazing setting, and it's just apples and oranges. And I think that also helped, because I did see people mentioning Strength of Thousands a lot, especially when comparison to Strixhaven.
I'm very biased because it is the first adventure path that I was intentionally the design lead on. There were a few that just somebody left the company, so I wound up picking it up partway through. But Strength of Thousands, I went through the whole way there with the lead developer Ron Lundeen taking the lead in that first one that you were talking about. Eleanor Farron and Alexandria Bastian did really, really well writing it. And I think Strength of Thousands is the strongest AP that Paizo has put out for PF2 yet.
I agree.
Well,
Absolutely.
So
the ones I like are not the ones that sell the most in general too, because I also really like War for the Crown, and I know that one doesn't make to the top most popular list for a lot of other people in PF1, for example.
See, I'm excited to play Quest for the Frozen Flame.
I was also the design lead on that one.
Really?
All right, I'm excited.
well, I'm excited to play.
But that just means that I help look at the mechanics and stuff. Like, the development lead is who matters on an adventure path.
What were you saying, Steven?
No, I was going to say I'm very excited to play Indigo Isles Adventure Path, if that thing ever comes out.
Yeah,
I really want to see that. I'm so excited for that. Because we don't do. Does Pathfinder 2 we have a pirate campaign yet?
No,
really,
not
right?
for not second edition. But
Indigo Isles isn't really a pirate campaign.
Oh, it's not. Okay,
but it's got some pirate motifs, but not really. You're not really being pirates.
It's
Gotcha.
I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. It's a combination of Indiana Jones, Pixar, and Guardians of the Galaxy. If you take those three and combine them, that is the Indigo Isles Adventure Path. So it is. It starts off with a treasure hunt. Starts off with finding a treasure map. That's what you need to do.
I think that just on the topic of adventure path design, having a goal in mind from page 1.
Oh yeah.
Is so important. I think that was our issue when we tried to run Extinction Curse right away. Is it doesn't start with a very, very big like your goal is this. I'm not going to spoil anything. It starts with a quasi mystery in a way.
Oh, we talked about it last week. We actually talked about this in detail on our show last week. Ironically, that starts off with a murder. And I don't know if you noticed that every Paizo adventure path starts off with the dwarf being murdered. You think
not every, but there were a fair
every single one. They
not
all
every.
do. Everyone.
No.
Everyone.
No.
I will tell you. Well, I will tell you. I will tell you. I will tell you one secret. Every single Pathfinder book, every single one, has the word machinations in it.
Really?
I've never not seen a single book without the word machinations.
Exactly as planned in my machinations.
Which is funny because I've read through all the copy, almost 200,000 words of copy for Indigo Isles. Not one machinations yet. Not one.
Nonat, I think that you kind of, when you were talking about the circus for Extinction Curse, you clued in on something that has reminded me of the APs that get complained about the most in both Pathfinder First and Pathfinder Second, and therefore proving that there's something deep as designers that we need to think about. It's that aspect that you said for Extinction Curse, and in First Edition, it's Second Darkness. The adventure path where the player's guide says you're going to make some pirate scoundrels who live in Riddleport, the town of the wretched hive of scum and villainy that is like near this weird gate. And we're going to a gambling casino, and then shortly after that, elves who are jerks to you the entire time need to be protected from drow, and you're supposed to do that.
Like, and why would you? Yeah.
So the adventure paths that have the most trouble are ones that are bait and switch.
Yeah,
that's fair.
And even ones that aren't bait and switch sometimes have trouble when there's a portion of them that feels like a bait and switch that goes off theme. So I think you need to lean into your theme. Like there are other ones where it was like, this is good, except for part 4, where you suddenly go to this other place and it's very different than what you had been doing before and after. And some people like a change of pace. I actually do. But at least online, you'll see complaints about when you go off theme, and especially when you bait and switch and everyone builds characters for one thing.
Exactly.
And then you get friction going into the actual plot. Because like we were talking about with the school, if you make someone to go to a school, your teacher tells you to do something, and you're trying to graduate from the school, maybe become a professor at that school. Everyone knows that, and it's what actually happened. So it's not a bait and switch.
And what works as well is, it's because the Magambia Academy, it's not some random school. It's somewhere you need to have a sponsor. You need to have a recommendation. Your character wants or should be there. You can't make a character who's going to skip class and leave Magambia Academy, or you wouldn't have been admitted in the first place. You know what I mean?
So
yeah, especially for a school like Magambia, where it's all about service and learning, and it's less about like I'm sending prestigious noble children there for just to have the prestige of graduating from Magambia.
Yeah. So we kind of got off track. We actually talked a lot about this last week. In fact, this is a very good topic. I want to do this as a topic in the future, is talk about how to start off adventure paths and like how to start off. Yeah. Because we actually did cover this. If you want to see your session 1, we talked about session 1s of how to grab people. And it was part of a larger session 1 of like, if you're going to do a custom adventure, like how to get people hooked immediately. And we were using various examples of hooks. So this is why that came up last week. But before we do that, we're going to take questions. So here's the rules.
Wait. Before we take questions, we were going to do a middle part, right?
Wait, let me finish, Mark.
Okay.
Nonat. Stop, Nonat. Oh, wait. Everyone who's confused. Nonat and Mark are switched because Discord crashed right before we were going live. So I had to quickly redo all of the plates, and I messed up. Anyhow,
don't listen to Steven. It is I, Nonat. I have watch my YouTube channel. I have 19,000 subscribers.
That's right.
And be sure to buy Battlezoo products, because as lead game designer, I swear by their quality.
That's right.
Aren't you the director of game design?
Yes, I know my title. Shut up, Nonat. Whose show are you on?
So before we do that, a few things. First of all, do like and subscribe. It will help the algorithm. Second of all, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. If you wanted answered 100%, even if you do 99-cent super chat, anything helps. We'll make sure we get to those. If you did questions before, they might have been lost. But one of the reasons Nonat1s here is because he's a cool guy. But before that, he has a Kickstarter coming out, and I have a sneak peek preview. Let's press the button, see if it. Oh, look at that! I even got the names right.
Oh, so I'm Nonat again?
Yes, you're Nonat again.
Oh, okay, cool.
For now. So what is this? Sinclair's Codex and Sinclair's Almanac. It looks neat.
So these are the first two supplements in what we hope will be a whole series known as Sinclair's Library. But we figured the best place to start off with these would be to make two books, one directed at game masters and one directed at players. Starting off the Codex, as you see on screen, it's going to have over 150 NPCs that will be super easy to just pick out of the book and plug into your campaign. This book, especially about half of it, is written with the idea of GMs who have players who like to ignore the main plot. You might say, I have everything prepared for them to go to the church, but one of the players says, what's over by the well, or what's the blacksmith up to? And so we will have so many NPCs in this book, everything from the little girl by the well to the innkeeper to the blacksmith, and all the way up through level 20 plus boss enemies, campaign long villains inside this book. So there's going to be different chapters. I don't remember the exact titles of each chapter, but yeah, it's going to be like townsfolk to like wandering bandits to full actual organizations to villains to heroes, and then finally the last chapter is about nemesises. I don't know the plural, but
nemesis, I think.
Nemesis, yeah. So we're going to have a good chunk of available nemesis, which make for those 1 to 20 plus campaign long villains. Each NPC is going to come with a backstory. Even that little girl by the well is going to have a backstory attached to her, as well as multiple different plot hooks you can use to plug her into your campaign and maybe give her a side quest or something. And every single NPC in this book is going to be illustrated. And we're going for sort of a cool design where the stronger an NPC is, the more detailed their artwork is. So the innkeeper, the little girl, might be like a very rough sketch you can show and see sort of there. But all the way up to the nemesis, you can actually see one of our nemesis is on the cover of the almanac there. That is Liliana. And she is very much a face for the entire Kickstarter. She's this hobgoblin bandit warlord with a flaming sword, a flaming whip as well, riding a completely custom creature, which I can't remember. I think it's the Abyssal Bison, which will be available as a potential animal companion, I'm pretty sure. So that's the Codex, whereas the Almanac directed entirely at players. New classes, new ancestries, new subclasses, new items, new archetypes, as well as a brand new cursed archetype system. Right now on the Nonat1s Patreon, you can actually pledge for $10 or more and get access to the playtest of that. We've released 2 on there for lycanthropy and corruption, and it's a really cool system we're super proud of, where once afflicted by the curse, you can make a saving throw to fight the curse, try to ward it off, or you can embrace it and start taking cursed archetype feats, which are bonus feats that come with, at the start, pretty minor benefits with some drawbacks. It's a curse. It's lycanthropy. You might lose control under a full moon, or your face might start to look disgruntled and hairy and such. But as you obtain more and more feats from that archetype, the benefits get a lot stronger, and the drawbacks also get a lot more apparent. So it's a really cool weighing of pros and cons, whether or not you embrace it or fight it. Really cool.
Like Horror Adventures Corruptions from Pathfinder First Edition, but brought into a PF2 and 5e framework that people can use.
I'm actually not familiar with the first edition version.
They are a concept which includes lycanthropy, but also other things where they're called corruptions, and you get certain abilities, but they also come with a drawback. And the more of the abilities you have, that can unlock stronger abilities, but also the drawbacks start getting more and more intense.
Very.
So it's something people may have loved in Pathfinder First Edition, and now thanks to Sinclair's Almanac, they can play it in Pathfinder Second Edition and 5e too.
So when do you think this is going live? your
Right
Kickstarter?
now, we are looking at somewhere between mid to late March. We don't have an official date yet because we don't want to lock ourselves
Mid
in.
to late March. We're in March. I hate to break
Oh, I
it to
know.
you.
Oh, I know. Don't worry. Back in January, it was mid to late February.
I'm just letting you
Oh,
know,
I see.
like
I
that
see
could be
how it
next
goes.
week. So
Yeah. So it'll probably be more late March, but we're very close. We're really close. We are really pushing on advertising, trying to build a mailing list. Do you mind if I throw the link to the mailing list in the chat?
sure, of course.
Sweet, yeah. If you guys want to join the mailing list, you know right when these go live, you can click that link. And my big final selling point: anybody who signs up for the mailing list and pledges to the Kickstarter within the first 48 hours will get a unique free bonus dice set based on Liliana the Nemesis.
Wow.
So very
There you
excited.
go.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and like Mark said, it's all going to be 5e compatible as well. So incredibly hyped, incredibly excited. Thank you for letting me.
I think all of you guys should check this out. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I was watching some of Nonat1s videos and heard a little bit about the design process. I think about maybe general feats or something.
Mhm.
And I was very impressed because it's very easy for someone in a third party or who's like not part of the design of Pathfinder for second edition to begin with, to be like, oh, I'll just make higher level general feats that are super powerful in combat because they're higher level than fleet and toughness and those other feats. So of course they'll just be much more powerful. But what Nonat was saying is that his team looked at it and they understood something that was part of design intent, that the first level feats are kind of like, we'll patch up your weak point in one of these basic areas, but the general feats were not meant to really mostly be about combat. They're meant to be about things in the game that aren't your skills and kind of aren't core combat capacity like class feats. And they figured it out because when they started writing those feats, they realized they were best in class, that they would become must takes like kind of every time. So that just shows you that they're really thinking hard on making something that's not only going to be cool and fun, but it's going to be like balanced to include in your game. So
Yeah, don't forget.
I think you should check it out.
Don't forget to put in the link, Nonat. Everyone's asking where you put
I
it.
did, but it's possible that Stream Elements blocked it because it's a link. So
Not really.
Oh no!
Then send it to
give
us.
it to us. We can put
we'll
it in maybe because we're mods.
Oh, that's right. It could be.
okay, there you go.
So let me real quick while we are. Whoops. Hold on.
Also, someone asked, just not to cut you off, someone did ask if we're going to have Foundry integration like Battlezoo did. Yes, we can officially confirm it will be a stretch goal, but yes, so long as we hit that stretch goal, we will be making full Foundry integration for both books.
That's a very good idea based on real data.
So, real quick, we are going to also show something fun, and that is we have some artwork from the Dragon book. So any day now, well, not any day now, any week now, we'll hopefully finish the book that lets you play Dragon Battlezoo book. And I got some artwork I want to show people. For those you're like, what are you talking about, Steve? That's what we're talking about. That's right. That is a party of dragons just hanging out by the campfire. All PCs, all dragons, all kicking ass. Look at that. So that is hopefully we're going to be out by the end of March. And we've been pimping this book for quite a while, 300 plus feats. There's more feats in this ancestry, Nonat, than there are feats in most classes. That's how big this is.
I mean, there are more feats in this ancestry than there are feats in a lot of books. I mean, they're not more. They're not more feats. Or sorry, if you count the ancestry and the two archetypes that are locked to the ancestry.
Yeah.
Advanced Player's Guide still has more. Advanced Player's Guide has like 700 some, because if you think about it, the longest sections of Advanced Player's Guide are just filled with feats upon feats upon feats.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that's I think in there that's a green dragon on the left. I think it's a bronze. I think that's a bliss dragon and an amber dragon. Those are the 4 dragons, by the way. And by the way, there is another artwork I have. Oh, who is this? This is the lore master who will be teaching you all about the lore of the dragons in the Dragon Ancestry book. And what's his name, Mark?
Calixandrex.
Calixandrex, the Green Dragon lore master.
He's obsessively documenting everything that there is to know about the special ritual that makes dragons able to advance faster and gain extreme powers without waiting for thousands of years to just get older and into a higher age category. And so he's going to share that with you.
Yes.
And he tries his best to be unbiased in the main text, which you'll see the main text is like, it's mostly academic. He may make some comments in the middle, but then he when he can't help himself, he writes little notes in the margins, which will represent with sidebars, where he's just like, listen, these are biased. Please separate them from what I'm presenting in the main text. But I just had to tell you this thing because it's just something you need to know.
Love it.
So this looks like, Pathfinder 2nd edition is coming out March. The 5e version, April, May. It's smaller but larger. There's a lot more feats we're gonna have to convert, but we only have to do half the book because the lore half.
Yeah, I think the conversion's gonna be trickier in some ways than like the monster mage or the vestige hunter were, because an archetype in Pathfinder 2nd is a collection of feats. Right. You can make a collection of feats in 5e, and that can work if it's small enough. Yeah. Once it gets big enough, though, there's nothing that exists in 5e that you can put all of your content onto and get a lot of content into, except for a class, because there just isn't anything else. Like a race in 5e, there's very little you can do. Yep. And feats, you're very limited because you lose ability score increases, and there's only a few you can take. So at some point, when you have 300 plus feats, you have to write a class in 5e because that's your only option. And so it will be a significant retool, but we have, some really good designers who are skilled in both systems and who worked on like Level Up for EN Publishing, who are going to do a good job at getting that over, working together with me and Steven to figure it out.
So again, if you're interested in this, you just go to battlezoo.com. And then as for when they will ship, it depends what you ordered. If you ordered just Battlezoo Bestiary, you will get that one. If you ordered the Battlezoo Bestiary and the Dragon Book, when both come in from China, those will go out too. The PDFs you get immediately. This will be in Foundry. It's going to be in Roll20. I believe it's going to be in Fantasy Grounds. And we're also going to be putting support for the Ancestries in Path Builder and Wanderer's Guide. So we are everywhere.
Awesome. I can't wait until people go onto Path Builder and are just like inundated with how many dragon options they have when they click, oh, I want to play a dragon. Oh, here you go. It's not going to be 300 right away until they take the archetypes, right? Because only like maybe a third of them are in the ancestry itself. It'll be like, here's 100 or however many ancestry feats.
So we'll get back to our subject. Were there questions? Let's scroll back.
Let's see. Did any questions pop up? I didn't see any that were like promoted questions.
Let's see. Gotta go scroll back
with highlights.
Do y'all think we'll ever get an update on the first 2E adventure path? It's kind of notorious for having some mechanical issues that came from being the first. Yeah, I'd say probably no.
No.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen with Paizo. It depends on if it happened right, it would be just like with Rise of the Rune Lords when it got a hardcover anniversary edition. Like,
sure,
that would be the only way that I could potentially ever see it happening. And so far, Paizo has not announced that. So,
I think what someone will do is if someone does it on Infinity, because that's very common, is that you will see, oh my God, this is like on the 5e world. There's a lot of people in the DMs Guild that will put out supplements for the official adventure. So like, here's the 400-page fixer for your 200-page adventure that you bought to make it so you can run it. Right. And those are best sellers, which in itself is kind of condemning that some of the best sellers are books that fix adventure paths that came out.
I mean, that's true. Even for the best adventure paths, that things that enrich them.
I guess you're right.
Like for Pathfinder
Second, this is fixing.
For Pathfinder First Edition, there were third-party projects that Legendary Games put out. Yep. Some of which I put out that were just like, this is an add-on to make this AP even better.
Well, you're right. You're completely right on that. That's definitely right.
So people who are running something want a tool from other people who have run it themselves and who really, really know what it feels like to be them, that is going to make it better or easier. doesn't matter if it's a great adventure path or like one that isn't.
So
like Jade Region is a wonderful adventure path that I ran. It did have a caravan combat system that didn't necessarily work at all levels, and certain other things, but it was incredibly fun for my group. And having run through it, there were things that I saw that I put into a product for Legendary, for example. I see another question in chat. It says, do you folks feel there would be value in a sort of Pathfinder 2 basic rule set for people who feel that the base Pathfinder 2 is too rules heavy?
Yeah, by Flame Slicer. And people answered, and I agree, the beginner's box, because the beginner's box was designed specifically for that. It has everything you need. It only gives you the rules that you need to play the game. The beginner's box for Pathfinder is fantastic. That is one of the best. I'd say it's one of the best beginner boxes for any role-playing game I've ever seen. It has everything you need. You can even play an adventure by yourself. It has everything laid out. It's gorgeous.
We worked really hard on it.
Yeah, it's good product, and
it's one of the best RPG products I've ever seen.
Yeah, and that's it. Because they don't have every rule. They don't have the whole 500-600 page rule book. They just have what you need. And it's fine. I've actually run it a couple of times and with new people, and they get it right away.
Well, the intro adventure is designed brilliantly because each encounter teaches you something new. Like the first one is just about teaching you how to make attack rolls. Then there's one that teaches you about like resistances. There's even an encounter that shows you can talk your way out of things. You know, you don't have to fight. It is so well done.
Yeah, Jason Bowman put a lot of his energies into making sure that it was like a tutorial level in a video game or something like that, where you just go through and each time you learn something new, so that you don't have to learn it just by reading a book. You learn it by actually playing and saying, hey, this is another thing in the game that you have to really think about. How are tutorial levels made? Sometimes, they literally put stuff up on the screen, but sometimes it just kind of happens naturally. Like the first levels in Mario, where it's were very, very engineered to be tutorials, but they didn't put lots of words being like, this is a Goomba. Yeah. You should jump on the Goomba or anything like that.
So Zark gave a super chat and just said, Battlezoo's bestiary was amazing. I'm super excited for Dragon. No question. Oh, you will be excited. The Dragon book is it's going to be good. How excited are you, Mark/Nonat? Mark. Real Mark.
Wait, I'm Mark now. It's been changed.
Right, how excited are you?
I'm very excited because this was I had an idea to do dragons if I ever did something for myself in third party that but I didn't want to pay for the art, basically, so I never did it. And I was like, I don't know if this will sell. I don't think the art is a pretty significant investment, but I'll make it and I'll make a core ancestry with the 2 archetypes and then the chromatics and maybe the metallics, and then I can do expansion PDFs that add, here's the Imperials, here's the here's the esoteric dragons, and here's the primal dragons. And then Steven was just like, no, we'll add this to the Kickstarter. No, that's fine. I was like, okay, so it's just going to be 20 pages because it has the core stuff and the 10 chromatic and metallic dragons. He's like, no, we could do all the ones from Pathfinder with the primal and imperial dragons. I was like, okay, that's 45 pages. And then he kickstarted it as a hardcover. It was like, yeah, actually I changed my mind. We're doing every dragon and we're going to make some more dragons as stretch goals. And he says you also have more space. I was like, well, then we can put in lore because a lot of these dragons don't have enough. And so yeah, it was bigger than my wildest dreams of what it was going to be when I pitched it to him. And I'm very, very excited for it to come out.
So something else, I was scrolling through some of this, and one thing I did notice, so in my research, I found out that pretty much in 5e, no one plays past 10th level.
Yes.
It's extremely rare. And
that's what I've heard
rare.
As well.
It's so imbalanced.
No one does it because it's beyond imbalanced. I mean, I forgot I was talking, or I heard, I forgot whether we were talking to Paul or Bill about this, Mark, that then they test fighting Orcus. So Orcus is a level 25.
I think that was Paul who fought Orcus with like a really low level
level
group and beat him.
7 character and beat Orcus.
Yeah.
That is
it's
5e. And I'm like,
ludicrous.
yeah, in Pathfinder 2nd edition, you can be level 22 and you can fight a level 25 Orcus. You'd probably still lose.
Yeah. Well, that's the
I
problem
think
of
you'll
the,
win.
You
of the
might if you're good, if you're really good. But
It's
you
the
know what I
constricted
mean.
number range of 5e.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, a 20 AC is good at level 1 and level 18. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like that much better. Like I'm a level 12 fighter, but because of 2 magic items, I have a 31 armor class, and a level 20 Baylor needs like a 17 on the dice to even hit me at level 12.
Ugh,
It's
yeah.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, again, I mean, 5e, they went for accessibility. And I remember when 5e came out.
I don't even think that necessarily I don't think that the bounded accuracy and the low scaling is entirely the cause of that.
Really?
Because I think that what Nonat said is more likely to be it, which is that the designing, assuming you won't have any magic items in the math, and then actually you do have them.
That's
so
true.
Yeah.
like, right? Like, it's not a huge deal if the level 20 Baylor only hits you on, like, let's say like an 8 at level 12 and a 10 at level 20. That's fine. Like, they're pretty close.
Mhm.
But it's a huge deal if it hits you on only a 17 at level 12 because you have 2 magic items that were just not accounted for anywhere, but that you could easily have.
And the problem is there's no item levels. Like, that's one thing I love about Pathfinder, is it just says, yeah, don't give your characters these magic items unless they're equal to or lower, unless the item is equal to or lower level. Because yeah, this shield, which gives me like a +5 to AC, would probably be like a level 16 or 17 magic item that I got at level 10. But because there's no levels, there's just rarity, my GM's like, yeah, you're level 10. I can give you a rare item. Why not?
Yeah, I just think, you know, for better or for worse, the math is very hidden in 5e. The math in 5e uses very weird scaling where it's like, oh, you're supposed to have 30 gold to level 1 and then 300 gold at level 2 and then 300,000 gold to level 10 and
But there's no prices on anything.
exactly.
There
Like,
actually aren't. If you look, you can find prices in the downtime system. I know this because I went through the math on the monster parts. And however, the scaling is actually such on how expensive the items are and how monsters scale in encounters that it is actually physically impossible to give out a set amount of money per monster. Say if you were going to skin the monster and get its parts and have it be anywhere remotely close. And you might say, but wait, isn't there a table in the Dungeon Master's Guide that has like the coin per monster that you can use? And there is, but if you look at it, that amount that you get from that is incredibly low across all levels of play. And it's just absolutely eclipsed by the Horde treasure, which is not per monster. And so that's how they did it. It's just like, you have this amount per monster and it's never going to throw you off because it's very, very low. So when we were trying to do monster parts, we were, our people from Level Up were like, this is the best we can do, but understand it's going to be off sometimes. And I looked at it and it was like, yeah, the problem is that in 5e, fighting one Otyugh is something that, and this is also partially because of, you know, the way that bounded accuracy works. Fighting one Otyugh is something you might do at level 5, but fighting 4 Otyughs is something you might do at like level, I don't even know, like level 16 or some very much higher level. And the problem is that the value of the items that you need at those levels, if you're using the DMG tables, is like 10,000 times more. So therefore it's like, well, we're fighting 4 times as many things and it needs 10,000 times more. And that's when I realized that we had to do the value, if we were going to do it, by encounter and by XP gains for your level. So you need to look at the party's level. And the way I justify this in game lore, because it's like, well, why is it giving me a lot more now than before, is that you're a more legendary hero and you have the skills to harvest like rare and very rare parts that when you were lower level, they would spoil because you weren't good enough to to gather those
So
at that point in
we
time.
actually have another question, which actually is weird because I was going to mention this. Flame Slicer once again said, having not tried it, does Pathfinder 2nd Edition work at level 20? Just eyeing some options from side things like become kaiju or the other capstone feats sounds kind of silly.
I think it works at level 20. Like
Yeah.
I've played a lot more levels 17, 18 than 20, which admittedly, if you're only worried about the capstones, the amount more that I played at 17, 18 doesn't help with 20. But I can tell you that the 17, 18 that I played in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, as someone who played epic levels in 3rd edition and oh gosh, what were they called with the true dwellers and stuff in AD&D, and played with mythic stuff and all the way up to 20 in Pathfinder 1. I've always played to the highest levels in the systems that I play. Pathfinder 2nd is by far the one that was just working well in encounters. And does that mean that sometimes it doesn't mean that PCs didn't sometimes trivialize encounters? Like I definitely threw a fire elemental cleric that had it was just in the AP. The fire elemental cleric was going to attack them, and he cast miracle and then a quickened, like really powerful 8th level spell. And the PCs disrupted both of them with reactions. Then they started wailing on him. He was in an area with like massive fire damage each round, which they resisted. And it's in the script when he gets to about half, 2 angels descend from the heavens and heal him with 7th level heal spells, which was going to get him like almost all of his hit points back, except for they counterspelled both of those. Because the cleric had counterspell from sorcerer dedication, and the wizard had the ability to counterspell heal from wizard feats. And so they counterspelled both of the heals, then killed him before he could go again.
See, but that
was awesome. And
that's not just trivializing things with like numbers or exploits. That's using the abilities you have in creative ways. I love
and it didn't happen every time.
Yeah,
Because then there was a fight with a modified Warsworn that also had these 6 scimitars in the air above that would spell turn, including area effects, to block a certain amount of spells that were kind of weak. And the party had a big knockdown fight where they had to like do zone control, and they had to change up. Like the people who were used to tanking realized that they needed to actually change from tanking to engaging those scimitars and taking them down because the spellcasters weren't going to do it. And the spellcasters had to start tanking because they were getting overwhelmed by the Warsworn because it wanted to like take them down, and they started like teleporting themselves away and healing each other and using different tactics. So these are 2 back-to-back fights. They literally fought one and then rested and then fought the other one of which they trivialized completely, and one of which they actually had. It was rocky, but they definitely weren't going to TPK on it or anything, or even lose a character. But it was just a lot of challenge, and those both happened in like the level 17 plus range of Pathfinder 2. So, I mean, I'm obviously biased, but having played at the very high levels in every other edition, it was very important to me to use the lessons I learned from having successful games in those other editions, but that I had to spend hours and hours and hours and hours writing content to make it work. I wanted it to work with basically the stuff from the book, and it did. And I spent less time converting War for the Crown from 1st edition to 2nd edition Pathfinder and running it as in the book than I did running it in running any AP in 1st edition, because I always changed everything for my group. I was like, no, this is a little bit too easy. So I'm just going to, like, I don't really like this fighter rogue build. I'm going to give it something else. And since we're throwing in this adventure, like 30 of this exact fighter rogue hobgoblin in a lot of mixed groups, I'm going to make a bard and an oracle hobgoblin. And every group, I'm going to give them one of the bard and one of the oracle too. And that, like, it paid huge dividends to do that. And it didn't take that long, but it did take hours to do things like that. And my group loved it. And they're like, oh yeah, that bard and oracle that were like, it was the same bard and oracle stat block, but it was like, that really changed the dynamics. I was like, yeah, in the original, it's all fighter rogues. And they were like, that wouldn't have been as interesting. But in Pathfinder 2, it was important that I didn't want GMs to have to do that. So I thought about what I did before, and I talked to some of the most brilliant game designers around who were there to listen to me about those things, and we brainstormed all sorts of different ideas and we put them in the game. So I hope that you will also find that high level play works.
So the answer is, yeah, it works.
Well, no, I mean, don't take my word for it. I'm
Don't take the word
biased.
for the guy who wrote it, who came
Yeah,
up
I'm
with the rule
biased.
set.
You run it yourself. See if it works.
I will say last night I was running a level 12 PCs in a fight, and it was not rocket tag at all. In fact, it was a tough fight, and there was 2 save or die situations for the PCs because they were getting hit by virulent.
Oh, I love
virulent affliction.
Ooh.
That is
You're
bad,
welcome.
man.
It's so gross.
Well,
if it does,
I had a monk.
damage,
One of them was a monk, so every time he saved, it was a
auto crit.
It was a crit. So he's like, "Oh, no problem for me. I'm just going back up to 1." But everyone else is like, "Are you telling me I have to save at stage 2 4 times to get rid of this thing in a row?" I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much."
Yeah.
But before he died, the poison ran off. So
That's good.
People are talking about the PF1 high level content in Owlcat games. Computer
Totally
RPGs
different.
are still hard,
Totally
but that's
different.
because Owlcat does the same things I would do when I spent hours tweaking my stuff for my group, and they up the difficulty by a massive amount on stuff.
But it's also a video game.
It's also a video game. Yeah. So it is, but it's a video game that's like, it's pretty faithful to putting in the PF1 stuff. And it's faithful to the point that they even, they allowed some things that my group, like the players themselves, will ban options because they know that the GM will use them in the NPCs too. They allowed some stuff that my players had banned into it, but then they also buffed the enemies like accordingly. So they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they did it, which you can absolutely do in PF1, but it takes a lot of work. And like, in addition to everything else they did, they had to spend work making it that much harder so it could challenge the builds that they were putting in there. And the idea with PF2 is that you won't have to do that, because hopefully just taking monsters out of the book and using the basic monster building guides is going to give you something interesting.
I will say sometimes Owlcat, especially at those high level endgame, do feel like a spiteful GM who's like, "You're winning too much." Every enemy has paralysis. And I have a screenshot saved to my computer from one of the bosses, and I looked it up on the wiki. Almost all of their endgame bosses have immunity spells with a target, and I'm like, that's not fun. Like, it should put like immune to mind effects and immune to this and immune to that, but not immune spells with a target.
PF1 was full of immunities that would like theoretically help deal with things like that, except it also had like these escalating things that are like, you're immune to the immunity, you can overcome the immunity. I even saw one creature that was immune to abilities that said they could overcome immunity.
Oh,
that's
my
when I realized that it had
God.
gone too far. So
We need to go back.
So
in PF2, we had a thing that like, Pathfinder 2nd edition lead designer Logan Bonner and I were talking about that we wanted to do, which is only immunities that will go in are ones that like have to be there, that just for the story makes sense that it couldn't be anything else but an immunity. And not just these weird random, like, oh, this is immune to electricity because it is. But in exchange, never write an ability that says, and then you ignore immunities, because the only things that were immune were things that had to be immune, like the minimum number of things that had to be immune.
So we have
Nonat gave the link for the backer kit. I don't know if we put it up, so I'll put it up here.
It up. And meanwhile, there's one super chat.
Awesome.
Vec the Goblin says, building encounters is incredibly frustrating in 5e. It takes so much homebrew to balance an encounter that should be an approximate level.
Appropriate
No,
you read it wrong. They said it right.
No idea
they said
what's going on. My
level.
brain just broke right there.
Like, having played a lot of games that have encounter building rules, it's very, very hard to get encounter building rules that work most of the time. It just is.
Yeah.
Like, when I ran, like, probably of all the editions, I ran 3rd edition or some variant of it the most. And that encounter building set, like, it was at least like ish in a ballpark at low levels, but eventually it just reached the point. People ask me, how do you run epic levels at that point? How do you run high levels? And the answer is, you cannot use the CR system at all, even though it's roughly a decent guideline, but it just wasn't enough. Like, my epic level group in 3rd edition fought a CR40 and they easily won. And they fought a CR21 that almost wiped them.
Wow.
And I knew that that would happen. So I made sure the CR21 was hyped up to be a bigger threat, because I did what you have to do in systems that are like that, which is know your players, know what their characters can do, have their character sheets handy, and run like a demo test yourself, trying to imitate their tactics and see how it goes.
And honestly true at any level. Like, after a while, it takes practice. You need to play and GM enough to know when to tweak the XP and counterbalancing. But the example I always use is if you have a 4-person party of all melee fighters and you put them up against a balanced encounter of archers on a 50-foot high wall, it might be experience and encounter balanced, but your party's gonna die because they can't fight back. You know,
right. If you don't have like ranged abilities,
playtesting is useful anywhere, right? But I think that the PF2 encounter building system is close to being what you need. And if you play test it, you'll find that you only need to tweak it, rather than like my example, which is a real example, where a CR40 was very easy for my level 21 group and a CR21 was hard. And they were both solos. So it wasn't like, oh, it was 50 archers or they were in a weird spot. It was just like, no, it's rock, paper, scissors. And the 21 brought a paper and my PCs brought rock and the 40 brought scissors. And so it was like, yeah, this particular PC has built a character that by that level can literally only be killed by like 2 things. And the CR21 had those things. And their saving throws, because in 3rd edition, you could get wildly different saving throws. I targeted the weak save of one of the PC's strongest person, whereas like the CR40 was mostly making attack rolls and the party had very high AC. It was kind of rock, paper, scissors situation. And PF2, you should still play test it, just like Nonat said, because you could find that the terrain or some other factor of it is, as the GMG says in PF2, is changing the level of the encounter. But even if you don't, it's not going to be off by that much. Most encounter building systems are, because of the fact that it's incredibly difficult to make one that can do that. It took us a lot of time, a lot of play testing, and a lot of tweaking and looking at math and trying to figure things out. And the scaling of action economy versus like how strong the monster is, there was not, without degrees of success, I'm not sure if there was a good way to get that to work, other than ways that some other editions found out of, like saying this is a boss or an elite monster, so it just is different and it has more actions to take up that account. But the thing we're doing, which is you can use this monster in any role. When you're higher level than it can be a moot. When you're lower level than it can be a boss.
Love that.
I don't know if that's actually really possible to do in a D20 system. At least without a lot of tweaking, because of how granular the D20 is. If you don't have something like degrees of success where each +1 can wind up ticking you twice on the die. Because you need to get to a point where, you know, monsters become twice as powerful when they go up 2 levels, essentially. If you look at how much XP you get in the encounter builder in PF2, that's what it is. And getting to be worth 2 of the thing of yourself when you were 2 levels lower, it's a challenge. The only other way you would do it is if your scaling was through the roof and you didn't have degrees of success, but it was just like, yeah, we're going to go up by 2 per level in our proficiency and all these other things. And like, nobody's going to do that.
Well, I'll tell you, if you ask a super chat, you get your money's worth, because Mark will not stop talking about game balance and mechanics, because that's all he does.
Just make that your job.
It is his job. But back to the original question, because I've been thinking about it a lot. I think basically what ended up happening, and if you watch our show, What is the Future of D&D, 6th edition, or 5.5, is that when 5th edition came out, I don't think they knew what they were doing, in the sense that they came out with it because they just wanted to keep the license. They had a very small team. They made it extremely accessible, and they came out with a fine game. But
I think they knew what they were doing. They wanted to make it extremely accessible. They met their goal.
But they didn't know what it was going to turn into, because like if you look at all the original financial reports and financial statements from Hasbro, they never mentioned D&D until the last few years when it really started to blow up. And then you had Stranger Things and the pandemic, and now D&D has become so gargantuan, and unfortunately, I don't know if it was built to handle the stresses that it's getting hit with. And now you have them coming out and literally saying there's going to be a new edition that will be completely reverse compatible with 5e, because if they cannibalize and say, oh, we're going to do 6th edition, that could kill it, which they won't do. I've said that in the past. They're never, first of all, they're not going to call it 5.5. They're not even going to call it 6e. No. They're never changing. They're
going to
never
call it Dungeons and Dragons. They don't even call 5e.
Yeah, they don't.
They just say Dungeons and Dragons.
It's just Dungeons and Dragons. There's never going to be an
smart
edition
marketing.
Again,
and the fact that they're calling it reverse compatible means the design space is already so limited due to the constraints of the 5e system.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of people are going to be moving over. I think this isn't the end we've heard of it, is that as more books come out and they're like, it's got the new rules, and when they're going to see that the new rules are like 5% crunch and 95% lore and fluff, I think a lot of people are going to be very disappointed, and that's where they're going to start looking at anything else, most likely right. Pathfinder.
And to bring this back around to our original topic here, did you guys see on the Pathfinder 2e subreddit, they did a poll that was like, what was your previous experience in RPGs? And you could be like, Pathfinder 2nd was my first RPG was one of the choices. And then there was like, I played Pathfinder 1 most, and then I moved to Pathfinder 2. I played 5e most, and then I moved to Pathfinder 2. I played something else most, and then moved to there. Those are like the 4 choices. And I've seen variations of this for a while on there. And I will stress that online polls that are done by just opting in are really bad for finding out anything about the total population. Mm-hmm. But they do at least find out something about the population of like that community who want to opt into a poll. And that one was the first time that someone asked something similar to that, where I played 5e first and now Pathfinder 2 is my main game, was the most. It was very close between that and PF1, but 5e was ahead. And up until then, anytime someone would ask that, again, they're unscientific, they're opt-in, they don't get a representative sample. But I played PF1 first, and then I played PF2 used to be the one that was the most common.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to keep going on. At least, there goes my dog. They're going to be hearing that for at least the next 2 years. Is that?
The rules lawyer did that poll. There we go.
Oh, the rules.
I saw your poll. I saw your poll, wow, rules lawyer.
The rules lawyer. Good job. Do more polls.
Polls are fun.
But it is fascinating. And do you have any friends that I have one friend who actively play? Okay, that's good. Do you have one friend that actively plays 5e and Pathfinder 2nd edition? I have Rob Tremarco on our podcast. He plays both actively.
I do both.
Oh, you do both too.
I do. Yeah, but that's because I'm in 5 campaigns a week and I hate myself.
Oh, okay, well there you go. Because I mean, I've been playing 5e more recently. I played 5e actually a fair amount in the beginning. Just because it was 5e and D&D. Mm-hmm. It is interesting because you definitely feel very superhero-y. I mean, I do like that aspect that you just really are just badass that just kicks crap out of everything, especially after coming from Pathfinder 2nd edition, where you're like, oh, I hit the monster, yay. I mean, it's like you feel really ground down in Pathfinder 2nd edition, which, by the way, I love that. By the way,
it's fascinating to me because I have the total opposite feeling. PF2 makes me feel like the grandiose fantasy hero, and to me it's because of the higher numbers. I rolled a 16, which means I got a total of 29 on my attack roll, whereas in D&D I'm level 12 and I rolled a 12 and got a 16. So that's what makes me feel like this grandiose powerhouse is those massive numbers. I'm level 5 in Pathfinder and I did 60 damage. Feels kind of cool.
I think we identified right here a really good topic for its own entire show, which is like what makes people feel awesome, because I'll say it's something different makes me feel awesome, which is I actually don't feel awesome when the Bellar only hits me on a 19 or 20 and I'm level 12.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one who was like this, but when I grew up watching, like, you know, Saturday morning cartoon shows, the ones where the villains were just completely incompetent and they failed constantly at everything, I just started feeling bad for them. I was like, I feel
Warp
bad
effect.
for you. You just get foiled every time easily, no matter what you do. This is sad. And so I kind of feel like I'm beating up on a small child or a baby or something. If it's just like a complete stump, I want to feel like the opponent were
Yikes.
very strong and dangerous, and that I beat them anyway because my tactics were better and what I was doing, what I thought ahead about what they might do with their, and I came with a countermeasure for it, even if it winds up being an easy fight because of that. Rather than just like, oh yeah, I could have actually done the thing that some people do in an anime where they stand there like this
And just
be
take
like,
it. Yeah.
You're 10 light years too soon to face me. I will give you 10 rounds to attack me before I make my first strike. I don't want to feel like I was at that point, because then why was I doing it? And it's like, it feels bad to me. But there are actually a lot of people who that feels good. Because like that, there's a reason that's in anime, and that's a power fantasy of like, yeah, whatever, nothing can hurt me. And they might feel stressed by the same thing that makes me feel heroic. So I think that that's actually like what make, and you talked about big numbers. That's another thing that helps some people too, and why like Yu-Gi-Oh has 2 zeros at the end of everything.
Yeah. Well, last night somebody
I think
rolled
this is a whole topic that is worth talking about. That's really cool.
Definitely, because someone last night rolled a 50. That was our first 5-0 to hit.
That's very awesome.
That's
like very impressive.
Right. When we remember the first time we hit a 40, and now we're like 50.
Well, what is the DC to remove sovereign glue again? Because it's DC 50. They could have removed sovereign glue.
Well, there you go. Well, this was a 2-hit. And he did 70 points of damage in 1 hit, and he was pretty damn happy. Good old monk. I was like, he was like, yeah. And that's, and that's the thing with Pathfinder. See, I like it when things are hard, because when you hit or you get that crit, it's just like, oh, you get that adrenaline. Like you really feel like you earned it.
Yeah.
You did a good job, Mark.
Easy.
Good
I wind
job.
up checking
Good
out
job
of the
designing
encounter
Pathfinder,
more,
Mark.
and I don't get as emotionally invested. Just when it's my turn, I'll just kind of more mechanically roll. I'll try to give a really cool description of what I'm doing, but then it's hard for me to pay attention to everything. Whereas when it's tricky and it's tough, I listen closely to everything that's happening, so I can try to strategize and figure out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to be able to take care of that when it's my turn.
So at the other end of the spectrum of what you were saying, Steven, I love the stress and fear, like the rules lawyer said here, when rolling a 50 on a reflex save and failing.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
When everyone at the table's like, oh no.
Oh, no, that's the best, because yesterday, this is a virulent potion, and they're like, oh, I rolled a 32 on my fortitude save. That's got to be a critical success, right? I'm like, oh no, you failed. Like, what are you talking about? I failed. I'm like, dude, you got to be in the mid 30s, and the critical succeed, you're in the mid 40s, baby. And they're like, then you could see the fear on them. They're like, okay, treat poison every turn. Give me the greater antidote. Give me that +6 to my check, because we're gonna die, man. Wait, we do have a question, and we'll wrap things up, because we went long also because we promoted our stuff for a while. Jur Kristen, I have a question. When I mentioned to my 5e friends that I'm experimenting with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, I met with jokes and pokes as to why would someone do that? How do you handle this almost elitism mindset? Well, welcome, dude. That is going to be in anything. Oh, I have a PlayStation 4, or now 5. Oh, why do you play PlayStation? That sucks. I only play Xbox. Like, this is welcome to Geek Culture 101. When I was a kid, it was Marvel versus DC.
It doesn't have to be nerd culture.
It's all cultures.
Oh, that's true.
You
that's true.
You like the Red Sox? Ugh.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about that. People invest in things and create sort of a fictional value for the thing that they invest that is based upon their own feelings towards it,
or real value.
And so
yes,
or real money, and
sunken cost fallacy.
Because of the fact that they have done that, and things like the sunken cost fallacy, and a few others, it means that sometimes, even when you don't mean it to be this way, which I'm sure you absolutely didn't, but people just automatically, it's just part of how we're wired, is to react as a, like, this other thing is here. Even if you didn't say, and it's better, or and your thing is bad, you get defensive because you have this other thing. So why are people liking that thing? And it causes so many arguments online, and it's hard to deal with. Like, I can talk about it here, doesn't mean I'm immune to it either. Like, you have to be very mindful of yourself to not fall into it when something else happens. And it can help to, like, it's something that's sometimes helpful to us when it stops us from completely just trying every risky thing. Like, to survive as a species, we need to be at least somewhat risk averse to doing some outlandish new thing, because if you try something new that has a 90% chance to be good and a 10% chance that, like back in the old days, right, that you would be killed by a rhinoceros or something, then you're not going to continue. If your strategy is to do that every time, then after you get 10 chances to do that, you may have been killed by a rhinoceros. It's something that has been, I guess, advantageous to us, like in the ancient past of the stuff we were doing, but it's not good. It's not good now, right? It's going to happen. So the way that you get around it is you recognize that people are going to do that. So you actually preemptively couch that can help you somewhat. So you're like saying, you know what, I really love thing X in the thing that you know that they like. So in this case, let's do what Steve was saying, Marvel and DC. So we're not literally talking about RPG companies here, right? And it's like, you know what, I know you really like Marvel, and I love Marvel too, and the Avengers are really cool, and I love how the Marvel Cinematic Universe is it keeps continuity, but it's not so much that you can't understand the movies, but it's enough that you really enjoy it more. If you've seen all of it, I think it's brilliant how they show that superhero is not just one genre, that each of the movies can be in different genres, and that's cool. But I've also been recently watching the TV series Young Justice, and which is in the DC universe, and I think that and I really like it, and you might like it too. In addition to everything else, I feel like it has some of those same things with continuity and that you might see from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's interesting because the villains, when they fail, they don't just get kicked back. They always have a backup plan. And so it makes the plot feel really strong too. And it's something else that's cool. So if you go in knowing that people are going to get their hackles up, and make sure to praise the thing that they may instinctively think, even if you said nothing, that you were against, that can help. It won't always help.
My main strategy is I've stopped telling people, hey, you should try this. And I'll just tell them, like, I was playing Pathfinder the other day, and I managed to create this character who has a prosthetic leg and also can summon a walking piece of broccoli as his familiar. And I'll leave it at that. I'm basically teasing them with, yeah, I can do this. And it was totally cool and fun, but I'm never saying, you need to play this game because it's cooler, because that's going to actively deter them from wanting to. Because for some reason, we as humans don't like doing things we're being told to do.
Yeah, actually,
that's definitely true. If you tell someone something that is counter to their opinion, it actually is less likely to persuade them to change their opinion, is more likely to entrench them in their previous opinion. It absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I want to just mention it. So we have a super chat. Diva Dragon wrote, unrelated to everything, Pepsi is the best. Now I'll tell you why. This is actually, it was funny because I was going to mention this. So this subject, there's a lot of research on this subject, and a big portion of it is based off the Coke versus Pepsi challenge when I was a kid. Those of you who probably, no one remembers this because I'm old. Back when I was a kid, they did this thing where they would go around like in shopping malls and flea markets and just public places, and they would have a taste test. They would have two products, and you would drink Coke or you drink Pepsi, and then afterwards you would say which one you liked, A or B. And they found that people would say, oh, which do you like? Do you like Coke or Pepsi? And it's part of the marketing campaign to say, oh, I like Coke. And then, of course, they would drink it and like, what'd you like? Oh, I like B. And they go, well, that's Pepsi. And they're like, oh, really? I guess I like this instead. That was in the commercials. What they didn't show you is that people, when they were told that they chose Pepsi, even though they said they like Coke, they were so mad that they would say, you're wrong, or I was wrong. I like Coke.
Yeah.
Like they could not comprehend or do the cognitive dissonance of saying to themselves that they actually enjoyed Pepsi because Coke was part of their identity. And there's studies on this, a lot of studies about how people were really defensive, even if they chose something else and they preferred it, it didn't matter because it went against their internal identity, which comes back to, you just got to be careful. Like, you can't make it adversarial. You can't be like, oh, you know, we should really try Pathfinder 2nd edition. I know we love 5e, but everyone's talking about Pathfinder. No, that probably won't work.
Yeah.
It's wrapped up in their identity. It's wrapped up of who they are. You know, you guys are all part of it. Instead, you want to either just say, hey, we all like 5e, right? I like 5e. You like 5e. We're all 5e people. But you know what? I'm curious about this Pathfinder, or I tried it and
well,
I
if you
liked
look
it.
at what Jorah Kristen said, this is the trick. Jorah Kristen wasn't asking the group to change themselves, but had the problems even by just saying the thing that you just said, Stephen,
That's
and that
so
you
sad,
recommended.
yeah.
Nonat1s. It just said, Jorah Kristen just said, I'm experimenting with PF2E, and didn't even say like you should play it or anything like that, and was already met with jokes and pokes just from that. And that's because I think that they read in the subtext of and you should try it too, or something like that. So you just have to sometimes be very careful when it comes to things like that if you want to avoid it. You can also just like, okay, they'll do jokes and pokes, but we'll get through it and we'll do something else. But if you want to try to avoid it, you can come in advance and try to diffuse it.
By the way,
that is
Mark,
one way to do it.
I think you'll like this. Look, I got something in the mail.
Oh, what did you get in the mail?
Dun, 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 dun,
Let me
dun,
see.
dun, dun, dun. Oh, is this what I think it is? Is this Battlezoo Ancestries Dragon book? Oh, it looks like it. Oh,
Well, it must be the sample book then,
It
given
is the
that we
sample
don't
book.
actually
I'm gonna
have the
flip real
real
quick.
book.
Oh, look at that. It's stuff in there. Look, stuff. This is the sample book, by the way. Oh, look. Pages of things. Oh, there's dragons and stuff.
That's so cool.
It's very cool. Here, look at it. Oh,
okay.
dragons.
I can finally see it now because I have to see it on the stream.
Dragons.
Yeah, we're sort of waiting.
I know you guys, had to catch up dragons.
Ooh, I see all that art flipping
My daughter
through.
literally just handed this to me. She was like, here, look, this came in the mail. I'm like, oh, I know what this is.
That's spectacular.
This is
There's
a
so
sample.
much art in there.
I know, there's so much art.
That's so cool.
Dragons.
Oh, that's so cool.
So, let's see. And Pepsi is not the best. Pepsi is garbage.
No, I do prefer Coke.
Yeah, me too. I think we're out of questions. I think we might have had one more question. I'm gonna just scroll back.
I'm with Adam Yu on this, by the way. I just don't like Coke or Pepsi because cola tastes.
Fair. I'm in a sparkling
Delicious.
water phase.
It's
I'm in a sparkling.
Yeah, me too.
delicious.
Me too. I'm with you on that, Nonat. Solidarity,
I hate to
sparkling
break
water.
it to you. Do you know soda is 99% water anyhow, so you might as well drink it.
Everyone knows that. I
Yes.
think.
Well, then it's just water with flavor. That's all.
I will say, if we're doing another question, I might need to run to the bathroom.
No, I think that we
And
got
I think
everybody's
that's it.
questions.
I think we're
that's
done.
it.
But everyone do like this was huge success. We're gonna have you on
Yeah, like
every
100
week.
people
No,
watching
Nat.
us
This is your new
simultaneously at
home.
our height.
This is your new
That's
home.
pretty good.
This is where No Nat lives.
Thanks for
We
having me
actually
on,
had
though.
more people watching this than like that big crossover stream we did the other time with Nonat and
What's the
Linda
power?
when we made that awesome ooze
Angel.
the angel ooze.
That was also very popular for
Oh, look
a
at that.
live stream.
2-page spread. Look at that thing. Woohoo!
I can't wait to see that in like 15 seconds.
I know. Well,
Stream delay.
hey man, what do you want?
man.
Can't have the camera working on Zoom and
Ooh,
Yep.
OBS
That's why
at the
we
same
can't
time.
see it until you guys see it.
That's right. But plug your thing again, Mr. Nonat. I'll put it up again.
I will link it again. I
And
think it's on my
Sinclair's
copy
Codex.
paste.
Yes, if you're interested, click the link that should be showing up in the chat to
There
go
we go.
to
It's
the
a
landing
backer
page for Sinclair's library. The Kickstarter will be launching later this month. We are super excited to bring GMs and players something new for both Pathfinder 2e and 5e alike. A lot of new stuff. Our main goal is to fill in gaps that have not been filled yet. You know, things that people might want rules for but might not exist yet. That is our goal and what we are going to fill. So thank you guys for having me on. Sincerely, this was a lot of fun. We need to do this more often.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
You just got cursed because I know where you live. So you can be on it. And you should bring me on because I'm a huge Elden Ring player, my friend.
Really?
Dude,
All right.
I look me up. I'm actually well known. I'm more of a video game person than an RPG.
Interesting. All right.
Look me up. I'm in Wikipedia for my video game knowledge and
Gaming
background.
Steve.
Gaming Steve.
Interesting.
I am
All
a
right, all right.
gargantuan gamer, and I'm a little bit. What level are you in Elden Ring? I'm level 43. What level are you?
96.
You're level 96.
I found a really cheesy grinding
Oh, I'm
spot.
not grinding. I'm
Yeah,
using
see-
no. I'm using no guides, nothing. I'm just
Yeah,
going, and I'm not
I'm-
grinding like that.
I'm not a big fan of games I have to beat my head against. I'm not looking everything up, but I've looked up a few things just because it's how I prefer to play, and I've been enjoying my
The only
experience.
thing I do is after I feel an area, because I don't want to miss anything because I'm not going to play again. I
Yeah.
felt like an area was done. I look at the map, and then I'll make sure I got all the points. And then if I missed something, like I was like, oh, I missed that dungeon, and then I went back.
I've been using.
That's all I've done.
Yeah,
That's
I've been
all
using
done.
a dungeon map, and one of my friends, we were just playing co-op, and they have you done Raya Lucaria yet?
I've only done the first boss. I only did.
Okay, we just co-oped
I
through
only
it because
did
we were hanging out and
Gideon,
having
or
fun.
whatever his name is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've gotten to the second area, and I'm going slow. And since I'm not using any cheats, and no, I'm not looking anything up. It's much harder.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. See, I will fully admit I'm bad at the game, which is why I need the extra levels for the extra vigor, extra stamina.
No, I'm pretty good at the game. I'm not gonna say I'm the best, but I'm pretty good. So I'm not that worried. Also, I have a different build because I have a spell sword.
I'm just straight strength, vigor, endurance. That's it. I sit
Spell
there with a
sword
shield.
is strong. It's definitely very strong in this game. That's sort of the easier mode, but it's still not easy because you can't get hit.
Like
glass
Boomerang's just
cannon.
not easy at all. Even if you're playing with high stats, it's still not
Oh
easy.
yeah. I mean, like that. And I'm in the area now, like even the mid 40s. Like now I'm in the 50s area. So
The
like,
only Souls game
doing-
I've played is Dark Souls 1. And I didn't play it all the
Elden
way
Ring is
through.
good, man.
Elden Ring's good. It fixes a
It's
lot of the issues I have
really
with Dark
good.
Souls. I don't like Dark Souls, but I
I
really
found
like
that Dark Souls
Really
was like,
good.
it confused me because I had heard that it was really hard. And so I've said this on another stream. I accidentally went the wrong way. And in any other game, just people have told me it is devastatingly hard. You will die constantly. The hardest thing ever. And it was that hard when I went the wrong way at the beginning and went down into these catacombs where these undead mages were making all the undead come back constantly every time until they were killed. And then like there was these wheels spinning around and this boss. And it was like apparently very end game and you weren't supposed to go there. But
That's about right.
That's
and then I came back and went the way I was
Yeah.
supposed to go. I was like, actually, Dark Souls is easier than I thought.
Easier.
Like it was way easier than I was also like a spell sword kind of person in that one. And it was like compared to what I had to do to survive those catacombs, everything else was way easier than that. And so I was kind of tricked. I think that it's tough, but it's not like completely unfair either in that way. Although that guy who was made of stone that was at the bottom of a tower in the area that I was supposed to go to, he was like a stone knight guy. He was very challenging, and I only was able to kill him by like having us both fall off of like a staircase a few times and taking falling damage because he would kick me off of it and he was in heavy armor and I was not.
That's awesome.
I think I also probably wasn't supposed to fight him. It was in the way that you're supposed to go. I don't know how well you guys remember Dark Souls.
I've never played one. I only played some of 3. But
I
fair
played
enough,
Dark
fair
Souls. I like prefer. I know people hate Dark Souls too, but I really like Dark Souls.
You played
too.
one, Steven. Do you remember the stone guy that's at the bottom
Yeah.
of the tower?
Yeah. Yeah, you went the wrong way.
He has a really good ring. His name is like Havel or something.
But Elden Ring is, you should try it. It's
fun.
It's
Yeah.
really very.
The open world fixes a lot of issues.
As a game designer, and with my background in video game, I was just talking, John Statz, who's on our podcast, he did all the level design for World of Warcraft. Like he did all the classic dungeons, and you know, he's probably one of the best level designers in the world. You know, I was telling him this level design might be the best I've ever seen. Ever in a video game, and that's, you know, high praise. And I really told him he doesn't play video games anymore. He really should look at this. The level design, I can't get into it. This is like another 2-hour discussion, but it is very interesting and very well done. And even for role-playing games, I think it would help you, because they do fascinating items of how you can be in, and then we'll end it. You can be in the starting area, and you can go left. And then you can find a tower to go explore. Then you can go forward. And then you can find, you know, a boss to kill who's riding a mount. You can go to the right, and then you see a battle of humans versus goblins. And this is like, but you can't see it from where you are. You literally have to walk, not that far though. You have to walk a few steps to the left, and boom, thing opens up. You walk in front of you, boom, it opens up. You walk to the right, boom, it opens up. Yep. It's incredible. It's very much like a D&D module. Like, you know, I always wonder, like, how does that work? How does it actually work in D&D or Pathfinder, where, oh, I'm in this dungeon and I'm walking from room to room? How would I not see what's in the next room? Play this game. This is how it works. I was like, wow, I've never understood it until I played Elden Ring better than any other game before.
Stop soon so Nonat can go to the bathroom.
I have to go. My bladder is about to go out of my body.
All right, we'll stop.
Chats. We did have 2 super chats. Knights of Last Call said good discussion, and Diva Dragon said give me more dragons.
Well, more dragons. Just go to battlezoo.com and you can seize the power of the dragon. Seize that power. Roar, dragons! Look at wait, that's the indigo. Look at that. It's a what's that called? The ones where
we're not gonna be able to see it for a little bit.
Not the architect. Oh, who's the one? The tinkerer. He's a tinkerer.
The inventor. An inventor.
Yeah,
inventor dragon.
He's adorable. Inventor. Look, he's got a little baby dragon. Oh, he's so cute. He's so cute. Check that out. We're gonna be. We might not be doing a show next week because I'm going to Gamma. So maybe I'll either do it from Gamma or not. We'll find out. If not, we'll be back in 2 weeks at the minimum. So.
All right.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
All right. Bye. Thanks.
I'm going to go to the bathroom.
Have fun in the bathroom.
Not too much.
All right. Bye.